Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to our YouTube channel, Daily English Dialogues. I'm Kore, and as always, I'm joined by my dear friend and co-host Orus. We are absolutely thrilled to have you with us today for another session of immersive English learning. Whether you are listening to us during your morning commute, while doing chores, or as a dedicated study session, we appreciate you making us a part of your day.
Thanks, Kore. It's truly a pleasure to be back in the studio. I've been looking forward to this specific recording all week because the feedback from our last episode on work-life balance was simply overwhelming. It seems our community is really eager to dive into these deeper, more philosophical topics that move beyond basic small talk.
I noticed that too. It's inspiring to see so many learners reaching that upper intermediate level where they want to express complex thoughts and personal values. That is exactly why we've chosen today's theme, talking about life goals. It's a topic that is universally relevant, yet everyone has a unique perspective on it.
Exactly. And for our listeners today, I want to challenge you. Don't just listen for the general meaning. Try to pick up on the specific nuances of the words we use. We'll be incorporating advanced vocabulary like aspirations, perseverance, and milestones. These aren't just fancy words. They are essential tools for describing the human experience with precision.
That's a great point, Orus. Precision in language allows you to move from just surviving a conversation to actually thriving in it. So let's set the stage. When we talk about life goals, it can feel quite heavy, can't it? It sounds like something you discuss in a high-stakes job interview or a formal performance review. But in reality, we discuss our dreams with friends over coffee all the time.
You're right. It doesn't have to be intimidating. In fact, I think the most honest conversations about goals happen in casual settings. So, Kore, to kick things off, when you hear the phrase life goals, what is the immediate image that flashes in your mind? Is it a professional peak, like a major promotion, or is it something more holistic and personal?
That's a profound question to start with. For me, life goals act like a compass. Without them, I feel a bit like I'm drifting in the middle of the ocean. Plenty of movement, but no clear direction. Lately, my internal compass has been shifting. I used to be very focused on linear progress. Finish school, get a job, get a raise.
The traditional path, right?
Exactly. But now I'm much more interested in the equilibrium between professional success and personal fulfillment. I've realized that a goal doesn't always have to be a big win or a trophy on a shelf. Sometimes the most significant goal is simply maintaining a state of continuous growth or learning a new skill just for the sake of curiosity.
I find that fascinating. It's almost like you're moving away from result-oriented goals and towards process-oriented goals. I think a lot of people fall into a common trap. They believe a goal is just a destination. They think, once I reach that city or once I earn that specific salary, I'll be happy. But if you don't find a way to enjoy the daily grind, that destination often feels surprisingly empty once you finally arrive.
The daily grind. That's a classic idiom for our listeners. It refers to the everyday routine of hard work. And you're spot on, Orus. If the journey to the goal is miserable, the achievement itself usually can't compensate for that lost time.
It's about intentionality. I think today we should really explore how to set goals that actually align with who we are, rather than what society expects from us.
I couldn't agree more. So let's dig a bit deeper into how we actually categorize these ambitions. Do we look at the immediate future, or are we staring at the horizon?
To be perfectly honest, I find the long-term horizon quite daunting. Planning 6 years ahead feels like trying to predict the weather in a different century. Life is just too unpredictable. I'm a firm believer in the power of incremental goals. For me, incremental progress is the only way to avoid feeling overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of a dream.
That's a very practical stance. So if your ultimate aspiration was, say, to become fluent in a third language, how would you break that down?
Exactly. Instead of waking up and thinking, I need to be fluent, which is a massive and vague concept, my short-term goal is simply to engage with the language for 20 minutes every morning. If I hit that milestone daily, the long-term goal takes care of itself. It's about focusing on the controllables. You can't control fluency overnight, but you can control those 20 minutes.
I'm almost the polar opposite, which is probably why we work so well together. I'm a big picture visionary. I love the feeling of envisioning where I want to be in a decade, the kind of life I want to lead, the impact I want to have. It provides me with a deep sense of purpose and keeps me motivated during the boring parts of life. However, I'll admit there's a significant downside.
Let me guess. You get so caught up in the dream that you forget to actually do the work today?
Guilty as charged. I sometimes neglect the granular details. I might spend hours dreaming about writing a best-selling novel, but forget to actually write a single paragraph that Tuesday. I have the destination in mind, but I haven't checked if I have enough gas in the car to get to the next station.
It's all about finding that equilibrium, isn't it? I like to think of it like a camera lens. Sometimes you need the wide-angle lens to see the whole landscape. That's your long-term vision. But most of the time, you need the macro lens to focus on the detail right in front of you. That's your short-term execution.
I love that analogy. For our intermediate learners out there, this is a great way to think about your English studies. Your long-term vision might be moving to an English-speaking country or passing a high-level exam, but your macro lens focus should be on the specific vocabulary or grammar point you're studying today.
Precisely. And we should mention that long-term goals often require perseverance because they take so long to yield results. You might work for 3 years before you see a major breakthrough. If you don't have those short-term wins to celebrate along the way, it's very easy to burn out.
Burn out, another excellent phrasal verb. It means to become exhausted by making too much effort for too long. To avoid that, I've started implementing checkpoints. Every 3 months, I evaluate my long-term goals. I ask myself, is this still what I want? Am I actually moving closer or just spinning my wheels?
That's a vital habit. It's called being agile in your planning. Some people set a 10-year goal and then follow it blindly, even if their interests or the world around them change. There's no shame in refining your aspirations as you gain more life experience.
Absolutely. Growth isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's a zigzag, but as long as you're moving, you're learning. Speaking of moving through difficulties, I think we should talk about what happens when those plans, whether short or long-term, inevitably hit a wall.
In the past, I'll admit I was quite fragile. I used to view a setback as a personal indictment of my abilities. If a plan failed, I thought I was a failure. But over time, I've had to develop a thicker skin. I've realized that obstacles aren't roadblocks. They are often just detours, or better yet, lessons in disguise.
That shift in mindset is what we call resilience. It's a word we hear a lot in self-development, but it's essentially the psychological elasticity that allows you to bounce back. I remember a few years ago when I intended to launch a small startup, a digital platform for local artisans. I had the passion, the energy, and even a basic prototype.
I remember that. You were working late every single night. What happened?
Well, I lacked the financial literacy to manage the overhead costs, and the market timing was just dismal. When the project eventually fell through, I felt completely drained. I had tied my entire identity to that one goal. It took me months to realize that the failure of the business wasn't the failure of my career.
That sounds incredibly taxing. But looking back, do you think you could have gained that level of insight if everything had gone perfectly smoothly?
Honestly, no. That fiasco forced me to sit down and redefine what success meant to me. I realized that my core goal wasn't necessarily to be a business owner as a title, but to have autonomy and creative control over my work. Once I identified that underlying value, I was able to find a career path that provided that freedom without the same level of financial risk.
That's a vital distinction. Often, our goals are just proxies. We think we want the specific object, the title, the degree, the specific house, but what we actually crave is the feeling that object represents. If you want a promotion, maybe you actually just want recognition for your hard work or a sense of security.
Exactly. And if you understand the why behind your goal, a setback becomes much easier to navigate. If one path to recognition is blocked, you can find another way to achieve it. You become more flexible and less brittle.
Brittle, that's a great adjective. It describes something that is hard but breaks easily under pressure. In the world of English learning, I see this all the time. A student might set a goal to understand a whole movie without subtitles, and when they struggle with a specific accent, they feel like giving up entirely.
Right. They hit one plateau and assume they've reached their limit. But a plateau isn't a dead end. It's just a place where your progress is happening under the surface. You're consolidating what you've learned before the next leap.
I love that. So instead of being discouraged by the friction we encounter, we should almost welcome it. Friction is proof that you're moving. If you're not hitting any obstacles, you're probably just staying in your comfort zone, which is a place where very little growth actually happens.
Very true. But to keep pushing through that friction, you need more than just a positive attitude. You need a system that works even when your motivation is at zero, which I think brings us to the real engine of any life goal: the boring, everyday habits.
I couldn't agree more. There's a common misconception that highly successful people are just constantly inspired. In reality, they are usually just very disciplined. Motivation is incredibly fickle. It's a feeling that comes and goes based on how well you slept, what you ate, or even the weather outside. You simply cannot build a life on something that changes as often as the wind.
Fickle. What a perfect word for that. It really captures that unreliable nature of our emotions. If I only worked on my English dialogues when I felt like it, we would probably only have 3 episodes by now. Instead, we've made it a non-negotiable part of our weekly schedule.
That term, non-negotiable, is the secret. It means you've already made the decision. You don't wake up and ask yourself, should I work toward my goal today? The answer is already yes, so you don't waste any mental energy debating with yourself. It's about reducing decision fatigue.
I've read that we only have a limited amount of willpower each day. If you use it all up deciding whether or not to go to the gym or whether or not to study vocabulary, you'll have nothing left for the actual task. That's where routines come in. They automate the hard work.
Exactly. Think of it like an airplane. Taking off requires a massive amount of energy and fuel. That's your motivation phase. But once you're at cruising altitude, you've reached a state of momentum. Maintaining that speed requires much less effort than the initial liftoff. Habits are the autopilot that keeps you at cruising altitude.
I love that imagery. But how do you handle the days when the routine feels, well, boring? Because the grind isn't always exciting. Sometimes it's just repetitive and tedious.
That's where we have to embrace the boredom of consistency. Most people quit not because they hit a wall, but because they get bored before they see a tangible result. They want the quantum leap, but life is mostly made up of small, marginal gains. If you improve by just 1% every day, the compound effect over a year is staggering.
It's like interest in a bank account. For our listeners, marginal means very small or at the edge. If you focus on those marginal improvements, you're less likely to feel the pressure of the big goal. I've started using a habit tracker for this. Just crossing off a box gives me a tiny sense of accomplishment.
It's a psychological trick, but it works. It provides a small hit of dopamine that reinforces the behavior. However, we also have to be careful not to become robots. Discipline should serve your goals, not the other way around. If a habit is no longer conducive to your growth, you have to be brave enough to change it.
Conducive. That's a high-level word. It means making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. So if your routine isn't conducive to your happiness or your ultimate aim, it's time for a system update.
Precisely. But even with the best systems in place, there's one external factor that can still pull us off track: the people around us and the pressure we feel when we look at their lives compared to ours.
You're talking about the social mirror, aren't you? Let's dive into how comparison can be the thief of joy and progress.
It really is the thief of joy, as the saying goes. This tendency to compare our behind-the-scenes footage with everyone else's highlight reel is a recipe for misery. On social media, you don't see the thousands of hours of boring practice or the countless rejections. You only see the award ceremony or the finished product.
And that creates a very distorted perspective. It makes us feel as though everyone else is making quantum leaps, while we are just taking slow, painful steps. This is especially prevalent among young professionals and students who feel like they should have reached certain milestones by a specific age.
I felt that pressure myself. There's this invisible societal clock that tells us we need to have a stable career by 25, a house by 30, and so on. But those are arbitrary numbers. If you base your self-worth on hitting those marks at the same time as your peers, you lose sight of your own unique trajectory.
Trajectory. That's a great word for the path an object follows through space, or in this case, the path of your life. Everyone's trajectory is influenced by different variables: luck, resources, timing, and personal values. Comparing two people's lives is like comparing a marathon runner to a mountain climber. They aren't even competing in the same sport.
Exactly. And when we feel inadequate because of these comparisons, it often leads to goal paralysis. We get so worried about not being the best or not being fast enough that we stop moving altogether. We think, what's the point of starting this project if someone else has already done it better?
To combat that, I've been practicing a lot of mindfulness. When I feel that sting of envy, I try to transform it into inspiration. Instead of thinking, why do they have that and I don't? I try to think, oh, that's possible. If they can achieve that, it's a sign that the goal is attainable.
That's a much more proactive way to handle it.
It shifts the energy from negative to positive. I also find it helpful to limit my exposure to environments that trigger that comparison trap. Sometimes you just need to put the phone down and look at your own progress.
I call it staying in my own lane. If I'm looking at the runner in the lane next to me, I'm more likely to trip or lose my rhythm. If I stay focused on my own stride and my own breathing, I'll reach the finish line in the best way possible for me.
It also helps to have a supportive inner circle. If your friends are constantly bragging or making life feel like a competition, it's very hard to maintain your focus. You need people who encourage your individual growth and celebrate your small marginal wins without comparing them to their own.
Accountability partners are perfect for this. They don't judge you against the rest of the world. They judge you against the you of yesterday. That kind of validation is so much more meaningful than likes from strangers online.
Well said. It's about building a foundation of internal satisfaction rather than seeking external recognition. If you are happy with the work you are putting in, the opinions of the gallery matter a lot less.
So as we wrap up this thought, I want our listeners to take a breath and realize you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to take the next step. Now let's look at how we can bring all these ideas together to actually move forward.
We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the psychological weight of big picture dreams to the gritty, often boring reality of daily discipline. It's clear that life goals aren't just things we want to have, but rather a reflection of who we want to become.
I think that's the most important takeaway. The goal is the catalyst, but the growth is the real prize. Kore, as we prepare to sign off for today, what final piece of advice would you give to someone who feels like their goals are currently out of reach or perhaps a bit blurry?
I would say give yourself the permission to evolve. A lot of people feel like they are failing if they change their minds, but pivoting is a sign of intelligence, not a lack of commitment. If a goal you set 5 years ago no longer resonates with who you are today, it's okay to let it go and cultivate a new one.
Pivot. That's a fantastic verb for our intermediate learners. It means to turn or rotate, often used in business or life when you change your strategy. And resonate is another good one. It means something that feels personally meaningful or true to you.
Exactly. Don't be a prisoner to your past intentions. Your goals should serve your life, not make you miserable. And for those who are just starting out, don't be too proud to start small. There is a certain dignity in the beginning stages. You don't need to have a 10-year master plan to start improving your health, your career, or your English.
Well said. I'd also add that you should be kind to yourself during the plateaus. Success is rarely a vertical line. It's more like a staircase. Sometimes you're moving up, and sometimes you're just walking across a flat landing while you catch your breath. Both parts are necessary for the climb.
That's a lovely image to end on. And for our incredible community at Daily English Dialogues, we want to hear from you. What is one marginal goal you are working on this week? Is it learning 10 new adjectives? Is it listening to a podcast without pausing? Or maybe it's something personal, like waking up 15 minutes earlier.
Whatever it is, share it in the comments below. Writing your goals down and sharing them with a community can significantly solidify your commitment. Plus, it's a great way to practice your written English in a supportive environment. We read every single comment, and we are always so inspired by your aspirations.
We really are. Thank you all for tuning in and for making this channel such a vibrant place for learning. If you found today's conversation helpful, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing. It really helps us continue creating these long-form dialogues for you.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when our next episode drops. We have some exciting topics coming up soon that you won't want to miss.
Until next time, stay curious, stay resilient, and keep pushing towards those milestones, no matter how small they may seem.
Keep speaking, keep dreaming, and we'll see you in the next dialogue. Bye for now.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care.